Hi everybody, welcome back with another technical demo around the Quarkus application. My name is Daniel O. Today I'm going to showcase how to generate configuration setup with the DevServices. This feature we announced recently. With this feature, one of our goal is still make the developer lives easier and bring back the developer joy. With that, we're going to add a new feature called DevServices. For example, if you're developing a PostgreSQL based application, but you don't need to run the PostgreSQL database installation or spin up on your local machine because the developer doesn't have good enough resources to maintain the database with the application development with multiple tasks at the same time. So in order to avoid that problem, the developer most likely to use in-memory database such as H2 database or file database like Apache Derby database on their local machine while they are developing application, even Quarkus or traditional enterprise job application. But when they finish the application development and then deploy the application to production environment like a Kubernetes or even OpenShift, even just bare metal, the real enterprise database is totally different in-memory database. For example, in production environment or test environment or staging environment, they have own PostgreSQL database or DB2 or MS SQL along with their demands. The truth is we always have some gap between developer environment versus a production environment, specifically database perspectives. So when you run the Quarkus dev mode, the Quarkus automatically spin up the test container and wire your application environment to test or unit test or integration, etc. So one thing the developer needed to do just specify the test container configuration or application properly with a specific open databases type. So here is what kind of database is supported at this moment. Yeah, like a PostgreSQL with a container, MySQL container, MariaDB container, H2 Apache W. Still, we are working on it. And if you still use DB2 or MS SQL as a container on your local machine, you just need to have a license acceptance to use DB2 and MySQL. So let's get into demo how it works. Okay, here's my sample application to implement a data transaction called Fluid. So Fluid, it will be database and put in some data. So to do that, we need to add some required Quarkus extension, for example, PostSQL to store the data and the Agro for data connection pool management, and also Hibernate ORM. And last thing is, so we need to serialize and deserialize between database and application side. So that's where you're going to use Jackson REST Easy. Okay, so we just edited 4 new extension. This is application project. As you see, when you go to PalmXML, you can find the new dependencies are already pulled on my local machine. Okay, here is my entity class. As you see, we're going to use the entity annotation to define these Java beans as the ORM mapping. But in this case, I'm going to use the reparse pattern, but you can still using the auto report pattern without the specific getter setter. But I'm going to use the more traditional way to define repository and get mapped our database table and a field attribute to our Java beans. All right. And then here is the Fluid resources to represent your application with the RESTful API. And first of all, I'm going to inject Entity Manager to specify this application capability into data transaction. So as you see, there are some get method to retrieve all data and find by ID, and you can create and update and delete specific data from front-end application to database. This is all normal, traditional cloud Java application. Okay, so next step, you're going to add the pre-data here, so cherry, apple, banana as a fruit. When you run the Quarkus application, automatically insert the data. And then into application properly, as traditionally, you just need to add username, password, and the policy, how to generate your data. And also just imagine that if you use the PostgreSQL as a production environment, you need to add the prod prefix on your application properly. This is one of the beauty of the Quarkus. Enables Java developer to have unified configuration, which means they don't need to manage separate property file at the same time. Just one single unified property will developer to manage multiple configuration. So in this case, we're gonna just assume production environment will use PostgreSQL. That's why I print this configuration in our application properly. So what about development environment? So you maybe assume, okay, we could just simply use H2 in-memory database because I don't want to consume lots of resources like CPU memory, even file storage on my local environment. But today, we don't need to use in-memory database. Just we're going to DevServices to use the same PostgreSQL database. To do that, we just need to new configuration here, Quarkus dot data source dot and DevServices and image name. You could specify any image name. For example, you're going to use a PostgreSQL. So PostgreSQL and the raised version, you can specify specific version on your container image. Just save a file, and let's try to run Quarkus dev mode. And when you run the Quarkus dev mode, it's automatically try to run your test container based on we specify the configuration in application properties. So now you will see here just connect to your container environment like a Docker on my local machine, and then try to pull the PostgreSQL images. So in the meantime, let's try to find my PostgreSQL image on my local machine because you cannot find that because I didn't have any PostgreSQL image. Once your Quarkus is running, the predefined data is already inserted in my database, and then go back to another terminal. We could have now PostgreSQL raised version container image already pulled on my local machine automatically. I don't even try to use Docker CLI or Podman, etc. Okay, let's try to access the presentation layer. You can find what kind of capability you have with this demo application. For example, Hibernate ORM and REST Egypt using RESTful API and the connection pool management, your Agro. And then here is the pre-upload 3 data, apple, banana, cherry. And then you can actually add a new data to insert like a mango. And then you could delete one of the data like a cherry. Let's try to delete a cherry. And then you could edit existing data like apple to orange. So this is all traditional capability to manage your data store. So from now on, you don't need to worry about any differences between local environment and production or staging environment, specifically database structure. So you can use easily a test container with the DevServices and Quarkus, and then the Quarkus will take care of your database infrastructure or installation automatically. You just specify the configuration and the image name or latest version, and then Quarkus will spin up your container when you run Quarkus application as a demo. Even Maven test command line like a Maven verify, and at a time the Quarkus still can use test container for your DevServices as well. Thank you for watching. Have a good rest of the day.